This is part 1 of a 3-part Q&A lesson. Thank you to all my Patreon followers for submitting questions. There were so many submissions of questions that I'm going to make 3 videos answering all the questions. So thanks so much. If you're interested in supporting this channel or taking part in these, there's a link for my Patreon in the description. So this first video will just deal with general questions, just questions that don't necessarily relate to other topics. The second video will cover practicing and improvement, and in the third video we'll cover technique and articulation questions. So the first question is by Dan Inga, and he says, "You're an excellent classical guitar player and an expert at your craft. You've practiced hard and consistently for years, but there's a difference between you and the people who are considered the best of the classical guitar world, legends like Anna Vidova, Christopher Parkening, etc., etc. Is this down to genetics, practice time, physical properties, life choices in general? What do you think separates excellent players from the absolute best?" Well, thank you for the compliment. Thank you very much. And I think there's a couple of parts to this question. The first thing, I'll just talk about the question itself, and then I'll give you a personal answer, and then I'll give you a generalized answer that I think applies to more people. The first thing about the question is that the people who end up being considered stars of the classical guitar aren't necessarily the best. There are other players who maybe don't play some of the large concert works or play really fast, but who are excellent musicians. Like, I know some players who I just consider to be the best, but they're not considered, like, they don't get the highlighted, best of the classical guitar. Their musicianship is really great. They just don't play flashy stuff, right? But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's certainly a separation when you look at the world concert scene from professionals, and then excellent players that are around. And so for my personal answer is that I think I knew pretty early on that I wasn't going to be a concertizing professional. I play concerts. I'm happy to play solos in concerts, but I'm not a concertizing professional. I don't, travel around the world giving concerts in that way. And I think I knew that quite early on, probably for a variety of reasons. I mean, I did start with classical guitar, but, I was also interested in electric guitar for many years. I went to jazz school for a little while because I was very interested in that before returning again to the classical guitar. And by then, I was an adult. And I've also, all wrapped up in those things, also a little bit of a late starter, starting at 8 or 10 years old. And kind of off and on and, slow progress in that way. Now, although I've come much further than I probably thought, I think I knew earlier on that, playing concerts is just going to be too much. There's going to be, just so much pure dedication in one direction. So that's one thing, like an intention to do that. At some point in college, I did practice in that way and had some ambition in that way. But I was also interested in other styles of music and lots of chamber music and other styles as well, and also teaching. I got hired at the conservatory very early, so I was teaching full studios and things like that. It's a hard life, that professional route. It's a lot of just like dedication to one thing, and it's financially it's very difficult as well. I think I decided like all the traveling and all the concerts it wasn't really for me. Nevertheless, I found my place. I really love chamber music, and I've played lots of that, and I really like just discovering pieces. And what I'm doing on the site now is kind of part of that. So that's some like personal answers to that. Now, in terms of a general answer to this, first thing you mentioned, like down to genetics. I don't believe in that. I don't think genetics have anything to do with it. Again, I think it depends on what kind of professional you want to be. But I think there are just excellent, top-notch professionals. They might not play in the same way as Anna Vidova or something like that. but they are excellent in their own right. And so I think that anyone can find that place. You said also practice time. Yes, absolutely. Professionals practice, 2 to 6 hours, like depending on what they do. The thing too about practice is that professionals will play, they'll have their concert repertoire, right? And they'll play that a lot. And for some people, really just keeping that same repertoire can be very difficult. Maintaining that repertoire at a very high level can be extremely taxing mentally and physically. Practice time though is huge. It's really hard to make a living as a performer, almost impossible. So finding practicing for most of your day is tricky, to say the least. You also mentioned physical properties. Yeah, same thing as genetics. It's like it depends. I think everyone can excel in different ways. Life choices, absolutely. Like if you have a partner, 2 dogs, a yard, a website, yeah, it's impossible. So your life choices are definitely going to decide that. There's a lot of sacrifice in being a professional musician. It's like being a professional athlete. You're really, most of your life, it has to be dedicated to reaching that pinnacle, which pushes a lot of people and things off to the side. And that can be very difficult. Yeah, so I hope that gives you some ideas on what I think about it. I was never thinking of being that kind of player, so if you're asking me personally, then it just never really entered my mind too much. I really enjoy music, and I don't really care what level I'm at. I strive to be as best as I can, but I just want to enjoy myself a lot and share and teach and perform and discover music and whatnot. Okay, David asks, I've been playing guitar for several years now and always playing from a musical score. I'm curious if my playing would improve if I started memorizing pieces. This is what I'll say, is I think that if someone memorizes the piece very well, I think that yes, you can play better when you have a piece memorized. If you watch the site regularly, you'll notice that I read music most of the time. My weekly schedule of putting out videos for you kind of has pushed memory aside for me slightly. I still try to memorize a couple pieces at a time, but for the most part, because of my busy recording schedule for you, I push memory aside because it takes a little bit of extra time and I have to spend more time with the score, and I'm always flipping through material. But I do notice that when I memorize a piece, I play better. And I think in general, the majority of the students I've taught, if they memorize a piece, yeah, they usually play better. But along with that, you might also want to consider that when a student or someone plays a piece really, really well, they've probably worked on it a lot. When I have a student who's trying to really prepare a piece, they're going to work on that piece for a year or maybe 2 years, and they're going to play it in master class, like maybe once a week, maybe more, maybe less, but they'll play it in master class often. They're going to perform it 20 times. They're going to play it for me every week at our lesson. So it's not just memory sometimes. Maybe it's also the intention that if you're going to play a piece for a long time and get very good at it, that you'll probably memorize it and work on memory, but you'll spend more time with the piece. It takes longer to memorize a piece. And the more time you spend with the piece, the better. Most of the time, unless, if you're doing it right. So yeah, I think by memorizing a piece, you take away one element, the reading aspect, and you can look at your hands and just focus on the music, not be having part of your attention on reading notes, but all of your attention on the musical delivery. But also spending that extra time memorizing it might also be the reason that people play better by memory. So I'm not criticizing people that don't play by memory. You can play well reading music, but I think some of those things I said for a lot of students means a better performance. But you have to stick with pieces for a long time. Tal asks, Do you think you'll ever branch out to other instruments, like electric or acoustic, for example, or letting your wife do piano videos? So I'm assuming you're asking about like websites and online lesson stuff. I do love electric guitar and steel string guitar, and I have thought about doing that. It would be very different than what I'm doing with This Is Classical Guitar. This Is Classical Guitar takes up all of my time, and lots of interaction with the community and things like this, the Q&A lessons. If I did branch out and do another one, I would think I would do like a general guitar knowledge site, something that applies to both classical and acoustic and electric, music theory on the guitar, things like that. And I wouldn't make it a blog. That takes too much time. I think I would just put out like one lesson at a time and build up a little archive of lessons. So yeah, I have thought about doing that. At the moment, the website takes up all of my time. I can barely keep up, so I haven't got to that yet. Letting your wife do piano videos. My partner is a pianist and a piano teacher, and she's very, very good at it. And we have talked about that, but she has other things that she works on. She also is an author for fiction, a fiction author. And she also helps with the website. She types out a lot of the music for me, and then I edit it and add the fingerings and things like that. So we're both working on the site in that way. So again, it would be a lot of extra work. So I've thought about it, but we'll see if we get there. Okay, Ford asks, do you have any thoughts or resource suggestions for playing with someone else on a different instrument? Specifically, I guess I'm around the grade 4 level, and I'd be playing with someone on piano who is at a much higher level with decades of playing experience, but very patient. Are there ways to manage that difference and to make it more enjoyable as possible for both? Well, the one thing I would say is that, yes, make sure the guitar part is just super easy. Because when you play with another instrument, you'll quickly realize that proficiency, especially on piano, is very, very high. And, you might find tempos faster, and you'll also want to play quite loud, which can be a strain on your technique as well. So make sure that the guitar level is way down here, and the piano level can be as high as the person wants. On guitar, don't be afraid of playing single line material. I know that our instrument is in a different octave than the violin repertoire or the flute repertoire, but you could consider finding violin and flute music and playing it with piano. You might end up being an octave down, but nevertheless, it'll still sound okay, I think, in the majority of situations, and it would just allow you to focus on single line playing more. But the other thing I'll say is that when you play chamber music with people, unless you're professionals playing gigs and you have to be really on it, make sure you just make the rehearsal experience as enjoyable as possible. Don't get wrapped up with being embarrassed or ego or anything like that. Make the ensemble rehearsals so much fun and enjoy playing simple music, and then everyone will be happy. The idea that we have to play hard music is very strange. I'm always very happy when I walk into a rehearsal and we play some music and it's easy. It's so enjoyable. I can focus on playing at a high quality level, playing very musically, and it's just easier. It's not going to take me that much work. And if I like the people that I'm playing with, we can laugh and work through things in different ways. And learn from each other, learn from different ways of approaching a piece, different ways of practicing. So yeah, enjoyment is the key. Musicality, make sure you're just focused on playing beautiful music. I would love to hear someone play some beautiful chamber music. I don't care what level it's at, if it's at a high level or a low level. If it sounds beautiful, I'm so happy for them, and I'm so happy to listen to it. So that's the focus, I think. Malcolm asks, have you ever considered doing a Dowland or maybe Renaissance collection fingered for lute tuning with the capo on the 3rd fret? And then when he says tuning, I assume, for example, the 3rd string tuned down to F sharp. As you know, I love early music. I talk about it lots, and I arrange it a lot on the site. So I have lots of individual selections. It's been difficult for me time-wise to build like large book collections. Like I'm doing Kirkcassie's like 25 etudes right now from Opus 60, and it takes me so long to type out all the music, to put all the fingerings in, to proofread it. Like it takes so much time. So I think I will put collections together later on, but at the moment I've been putting out lots of like smaller collections or individual selections. And then later I'll probably end up like grouping those individual ones together into collections so people can either buy them as a collection or individual pieces from the site. They can just do whatever they want. So yeah, I think as time goes forward, I will accumulate more and more repertoire and then start putting it into collections. At the moment, because of grade levels and like people's different levels, like it's very I think people really appreciate that they can get individual pieces at the moment. But yeah, collections would be great, and I could also make hard copies, so that would be nice to do. So yes, I will eventually. Brian asks, I'm somewhere between grade 1 and grade 2, and it takes a lot of practice to play your textbook pieces. I'm assuming they're saying like the pieces from my grade 1 and 2 book, for example. And he said to play them smoothly. And so I'd like to work on easier pieces at the same time. What do you suggest as sources for complementary pieces? Well, one thing I'll say to that is when I have a student who is, for example, in grade 4, they will probably have about 3 grade 4 pieces that I'll have them play. This is not for like exam students. This is for my like just my average, my students, even my most ambitious students. I'll have them play like 3 grade 4 pieces, and they're going to play that all year long, and really work those pieces over and over. They don't get to switch the pieces unless they really hate them, but like they're going to work those pieces for a year and a half, 2 years, and just become very, very good at those. And then I'll have them be playing a lot of, for example, grade 2 pieces, because they'll be able to get through those grade 2 pieces quite quickly in a month or 2, and it gives them something to play and something to perform that's different and a really good sense of accomplishment, and it just makes them feel like they're so good at learning new pieces and playing music. So that's one thing I will first say is that, yeah, be working on, my books don't have that many pieces in them. In the grade 2 book, there's not that many pieces in there. So you should be playing a lot of easier pieces as well. I have 2 books, Easy Classical Guitar, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Though that collection has pieces from the grade 1 level to the grade 3 level. So pieces that don't have difficult stretches or bars and things like that. So you could take a look at my books, but there's lots of collections out there. There's graded things like the Royal Conservatory Music in Canada has a graded series. But I think if you're in the grade 1 or 2 level, grab some method books. Method books by other authors. Method books are great. Easy little pieces to play through. Also, new ways of approaching things, new explanations in the books. It's really, really healthy for you to work through method books. So yeah, lots of collections out there. You can check out mine, but also working on method books as well. Hi, Pimento. Hi, Pimento. Yeah, hi. Hi, sweetie. Hi. Okay. And you're great. Shravan asks, I'm at the grade 3 level and I'm thinking of buying a higher end classical guitar. There are plenty of tutorials on what to look for in a guitar, but these are usually for people buying their first guitar. I guess experienced guitarists know what to look for, but I can't find anything for the intermediate or late beginner level players who want to evaluate higher end guitars. Could you give me some brief pointers on what to look for and how to test out a guitar? Yeah, choosing a guitar is very difficult. What I would recommend is the moment I play a guitar, I usually know if I like it. If I play a scale even, I'll immediately know the balance is pretty good. When I get to the treble strings, they come out and it's not overpowering the bass strings. And so, I'll do some across the string work, like just some scales or some pieces or some chords. I'm out of tune. I just changed my strings, but I can tell the balance pretty quickly, and balance is really important to me because if I'm playing a melody, and you could go in and play just, an excerpt of a melody, and if that melody pops out nicely, it's a good guitar, right? So like some exploratory things like that to make sure it's a really functional instrument in that regard. Do things, come out? Is the balance good across the strings? The basses aren't like way louder than the trebles, are they? So that's really important. The other thing is response in the right hand. So like when I'm playing, how much volume is coming out and how much effort do I have to put in to actually bring out a note. And if it feels like it's projecting and creating a lot of sound with not too much effort, I like that. I don't want to go too far in that direction, but like I do want a guitar, higher end guitars respond well to the touch and produce sound with not too much effort. So there's those two things. There is the tone quality, like does it sound nice? And that's very subjective. That's a very subjective thing whether something sounds nice. Because usually things can sound bright or warm and players will like one way or the other. So there's those considerations. One thing I do is I do play every fret on every string usually, just to make sure it's built properly, and set up properly too. I want a guitar that's set up and is functional, of course. After that, there's not too much I can say. When I'm buying like a really expensive guitar, and I'm not having it built for me, like I had this one built for me, but I'd tried out lots of his guitars before. Going to a concert hall and comparing a few guitars, getting some friends together, get them to bring their guitars and compare them is nice, but it's kind of a higher end thing, and lots of people don't have access to a church or a hall. But you could get people together into a room and do the same thing. A great thing to do would be to bring a higher level player with you. That's a really great idea. If you have a teacher or a friend who's at a higher level, bring them along, have them play the guitar. It's really great for you to stand on the other side of the instrument and hear someone else play it, because guitars sound different on each side, right? And also for them to just evaluate the guitar with you. In the end, though, it doesn't matter what I tell students or what I like when I'm buying a guitar too. I could go into it with a whole bunch of preconceptions about what I want to get out of the instrument, but in the end, as soon as I pick up the instrument and play some notes on it, I usually know if I like it or not. Unless I'm trying to balance it with my budget a lot. Like I bought a Yamaha C40, which is like $150, just to keep at my mother's place for when I occasionally visit. And so when I bought that guitar, I played every fret, played across the strings. It seemed fine. It's in working order. $150. I'm happy. But I'm not going to perform on a concert hall stage with that, or chamber music with other people with that. So once price comes into it, you're going to have to have a smaller range of guitars that you're considering, and then hopefully you can try them out and one of them speaks to you in a certain way. Hopefully they're all somewhat well balanced. They all are functional. And then, one of them is going to speak to you. And usually in the end, you end up buying that one. Unless you have your teacher or someone else there saying, this other instrument, that's the one for you. Trust me, it's going to, in the future, you're going to want that one instead of that other one. So, the reason you don't see many videos on it is there's just so many variables as to what people want and what guitars do, that it's really tricky, but I hope that gives you some idea. So thank you to everyone who submitted questions. the next one will be on practicing and improvement, and we'll try to answer some specific things about practicing in that video.